Welcome everybody to one of our 30-minute 5-pose practices. Today we're working with the theme of the obstacles that we face and the hindrances that we run into in life being the actual keys to our freedom, rather than being a hindrance, more being the actual method by which we find our freedom. We're also kind of looking at the idea of the practice itself not being a means to an end that's separate from the practice, but that the practice itself is, in fact, the reward. We notice this sometimes when we're having a really good practice and we feel the immediate effects of sort of the blissfulness that comes from our practice, not as a someday thing that we're working towards, although that is also happening, but the actual being in the moment, being in the practice itself is the very ends that we're aiming for. So today we're going to use the wall. You can see I've positioned my mat pretty close to the wall. The short edge is kind of up against the baseboards. I've also gathered some blocks that we may or may not use for our practice today, especially if you have sensitive wrists, blocks can be helpful. An alternative would be to use a studio bolster for some of these practices as well. So we'll begin our practice today seated but up against the wall. So I'm just going to scoot myself back, pressing the sacrum into the wall, finding a comfortable place to put my feet. Feel free to utilize any soft surface underneath your sitting bones or even behind your sacrum up against the wall. And then maybe just gently kind of align your spine against the wall itself. So shoulders, sacrum, perhaps even the back of the skull touching the wall. And start to bring yourself into that place of awareness, maybe closing the eyes and allowing the gaze or the focus to be on inward sensation, and just take an assessment of where you are today. Notice the quality of your breath, your mood, your energy level, not with an aim to change it or adjust it in any way, but just to be present with where you are in this moment. Feeling the satisfaction not of being perfect in this moment, but just of being fully and perfectly aware of the truth of your moment. Start to focus your attention on your breathing. And we'll start to warm up the body for the rest of our movements for today. So on an inhale, start to draw the heart forward and upward away from the wall. Press the shoulders back as if to reach for the wall. Back of the skull and bottom of the sacrum may still be in contact or close to the wall. Take a couple of breaths here, feeling the front body open. As you exhale, reverse that direction. Push the middle of your back or the bottom of your ribs toward the wall. Feel your hips kind of pointing away and the crown of the head kind of pointing downward as the chin tucks in actively towards the chest. Kind of pull the shoulders away from the wall. Now we'll move back and forth between these two positions. So inhale and lift. Exhale and fold. Two more breath cycles like this. Good. Coming back to neutral. Find that alignment again with the wall. And this time we're just going to bring our arms out wide in a T shape and just kind of stretch your fingertips as far away from your shoulders as you can. Kind of pull your shoulders almost down and back as if to squeeze together behind your body. And just kind of stretch open. We're going to lean kind of to one side. Maybe the one hand comes down towards the floor and then kind of swinging back and forth. Take this a couple times. Then we're going to make this just a little bit more extreme by placing one hand against the floor and stretching over to the side a little bit more. See if you can kind of press into your bottom arm to keep both sitting bones on the floor. Switching sides, other hand coming down towards the floor, pressing in to open that opposite side and reaching to the other side, both sitting bones again connected to the floor. Excellent. Opening back up into our neutral space. Let's take the right hand over to the left knee and just kind of push against or pull against that hand and the knee to twist the heart as if to bring that gaze straight to the wall behind you. Releasing that and finding the opposite, left hand to right knee, pulling against as if to draw that right shoulder back, and the gaze almost trying to look straight behind you to the wall. Releasing that movement. Let's take one little stretch for the backs of the legs before we find our 5 pose practice. So lengthening upward, finding a staff pose, kind of pulling the toes back towards the face. Lifting up through the crown of the head, taking a nice strong 90-degree angle in the body. Keeping that flat back, start to walk yourself down a little bit towards your feet. Continuing to lift and lengthen the spine. Perhaps we start to reach for the toes or the ankles or the soles of the feet. 2 more breaths here. And then we're going to round the spine. So first starting by tucking the chin in towards the chest, opening up the back of the neck, then allowing the shoulders to kind of pull forward and downward towards the legs. Maybe the hands walk just a little further down towards the feet. Softening that upper body into a little wilt shape. Softening here, feeling the stretch at the backs of the legs, keeping the legs and feet active, pushing the heels away and pulling the toes back towards the body. Two more breaths here. Then feel almost like there's a magnet at the back of your heart that is slowly pulling your heart back towards the wall. Let the shoulders again reach back towards the wall. Take 2 more breaths here in your staff pose. And we'll begin our 5 pose practice. So we're going to swing the legs behind the body, and we're going to use the wall for these poses. Our 5 poses are going to be a downward facing dog, a plank position, a side plank position, a cobra, an up dog, or a sphinx pose, so some kind of back bend, and then also child's pose. So these are our 5 poses, and we're just going to kind of practice these in repetition. First slowly, and then a little bit more quickly with our breath. So in this sort of shape that we have here, kind of push the toes into the floor, and as you find a place for your hands, we're going to push up and against the heels up against the wall to find a downward facing dog shape. So first find your adjustment. This is a little different than we normally do this pose. We're going to lengthen through the arms and legs both, kind of reaching the tailbone up, rounding the shoulders kind of in towards the front of the heart, and then finding a softness in the back of the neck, letting the head become heavy. Letting go of any goal for how this pose should look or should feel, and just simply being present with what is. Maybe soften the knees. Maybe you can get a sense of hollowness in the belly, sort of a relaxing of those muscles. We're going to start to shift our weight forward towards the top of the mat as we find our plank pose. So you might need to walk the hands just a little further forward to keep the heels at the wall, so toes are still on the floor, heels are still at the wall, engaging through the core here. At any point, you can also choose to allow the knees to drop, but stay engaged, kind of pushing into the hands if you take this option, and continuing to engage through that low abdomen. Doing your best to keep your breath even here. On your next exhale, if your knees have not already dropped, you can drop them or just bring your whole body down towards the floor. So chin can rest on the mat or possibly one cheek. Kind of softening out the body, relaxing. And from here, we're going to start to lift the heart away from the floor. So as I mentioned, we have a couple of options on how we take this back bend. We can either just kind of lift a little ways off the floor, maybe the hands come a little forward so we're resting on forearms, start to pull the shoulders back and lengthen through the neck. So if we're too much this way, the back of the neck is very short. So you want to keep the crown of the head sort of in line with the rest of the spine. Another option would be to kind of press upward this way. Another option would be to straighten the arms and lift the pelvis off the floor. And feel free to take any of these options as we repeat this flow several times through the practice today. So in your back bend here, just kind of pause with it. Be fully present with what this pose feels like in this moment, letting go of how it should feel or how it should look, and just simply being present with how it is. Release your back bend, come back down to the belly on the mat, kind of soften, shake it out a little bit. Bring your hands back under their shoulders if they're not there already. And then press up just briefly through a tabletop-like shape, and then walk your hands back a little bit, allowing your hips to fall back towards the wall. Now you can come forward a little bit as you make this transition and let your hips sink into your heels. You could also have a block between your feet back here so that as you come into your child's pose, you have a little bit of a raised surface to rest your heels, to rest your hips on. See how much you can find yourself softening. So make some adjustments, kind of wiggle everything out, find ease. Hands might continue to point forward towards the top of the mat. You can also choose to bring them down alongside your body, kind of shoulders resting on the tops of the thighs, hands resting softly near the heels. We're going to let this be as active as we can for this first part of the flow, and then start working more and more toward a less challenging situation so that by the time we're ready to sit in our rest pose for the end of practice, we're ready to do that. So let's start to make our transition back into downward facing dog. Rising up from your child's pose, tucking the toes, pressing the backs of the heels into the wall. In our downward facing dog, let's hold here for 5 long, slow breaths. Fifth exhale, find your way to that plank. Again, knees on or off the floor, but stay steady, stay strong. 5 slow, long breaths. Fifth exhale, come all the way down to the belly. Take a moment to soften. Maybe the tops of the feet are coming down to the floor as well. Lifting your heart. We're finding our back bend, whether that's a sphinx, a cobra, or an upward facing dog. Pulling the shoulders back, opening the heart, lengthening both the front and the back of the neck. 5 long, slow, patient breaths here. On your fifth exhale, let's make our transition, releasing the back bend, hands underneath the shoulders, pressing briefly as a transition through that tabletop, then starting to shift back into our child's pose. 5 long, slow, patient breaths here. It might feel good to lift the head, tuck the chin a little bit more, and then relax the head back down towards the floor. And again, arms can be forward or back towards the wall, your choice. Coming back to the beginning of our flow, downward facing dog. This time we hold for 4 breaths in each shape. 4 long, slow, patient breaths. Transitioning to our plank, 4 breaths.
Fourth exhale, transitioning down to our belly, softening, then inhaling into our back bend, 4 breaths. Pulling the shoulders back, lengthening both sides, front and back of the neck. Exhaling to release, pushing up and back into table and then child's pose. 4 long, slow, patient breaths here. Next round, 3 breaths in each pose, coming back into downward facing dog. 3 slow, patient breaths. Third exhale, find your way to plank, 3 breaths. Third exhale, lower to the belly. Inhale to lift the heart, 3 breaths. Third exhale, soften back down, hands under the shoulders, pressing up through table and back into child's pose, 3 breaths. Next round, 2 breaths in each pose, downward facing dog. Slow, patient breaths, but only 2. Second exhale, find your plank, 2 breaths. Second exhale, come down to the belly. Inhale, back bending, 2 breaths. Second exhale, releasing. Pressing up through table and back into child's pose, 2 breaths. Back up to downward facing dog. 1 big breath in. Exhale, plank. Big breath in. Exhale, lower. Big breath in as you lift your heart. Exhale, lower. Inhale to lift. Exhale into child's pose. Big breath in. Exhale. Back to downward facing dog. We're just going to take 1 breath versions of this. Inhale here. Exhale, plank. Inhale here. Exhale, lower. Inhale, lift and back bend. Exhale, lower. Inhale, table. Exhale, child. Inhale here and exhale here. Back to down dog. Inhale here. Exhale, plank. Inhale here. Exhale, lower. Inhale, back bend. Exhale, lower. Inhale, table. Exhale, child. Inhale and exhale here. A few more rounds like this. Inhale, downward facing dog. Exhale, plank. Inhale. Exhale, lower. Inhale, lift. Exhale, lower. Inhale, table. Exhale, child. 2 full breaths here. Let's take a little bit longer rest. Just a few more rounds of these single breath versions of the pose, coming back into downward facing dog. Big breath in. Exhale, plank. Big breath in. Exhale, lower. Breath in as you lift the heart. Exhale, lower. Inhale, table. Exhale, child. Full breath in, full breath out. Downward facing dog. Big breath in. Exhale, plank. Inhale. Exhale, lower. Inhale, back bend. Exhale, lower. Inhale, table. Exhale, child. Full breath in and out. Back to the beginning. You've got your rhythm now. Inhale, inhale, down dog. Exhale, plank. Inhale, exhale, lower. Inhale, lift the heart. Exhale, lower. Inhale, table. Exhale, child. Full breath in and out. Let's keep this flowing. So inhaling to down dog. Exhaling, plank. Exhale again, lower. Inhale, lift. Exhale, lower. Inhale, table. Exhale, child. 2 breaths. And what we're doing here with our bodies is modeling this continuous, long, enduring practice, which in the Yoga Sutras is called abhyasa. It means a long, enduring practice, but it also literally means well-placed effort. So this means not just keeping ourselves busy for the sake of being active, but more to place our effort in a way that brings us to that external goal or to that feeling of health and well-being, strength and flexibility, which are the goals of yoga. But also recognizing with our theme for this week that the practice in and of itself can be a joy. Maybe for you this is not joyful. Maybe this is really challenging. And if that's the case, see if you can remember all the challenging things in your life that have brought you some kind of reward. Maybe it was a reward you weren't even expecting because it was so difficult that it was hard and not fun. But some of those things that challenge us the most are the things that bring us closest to our goal of oneness. When we practice being calm and steady in challenge, we get better at it. So let's take a few more rounds of this. Letting go of some external reward and just trying to be as fully present in our wholeness as we can be as we challenge ourselves just through 2 more rounds. Downward facing dog. Plank pose. A back bend and heart opener. Back to our child's pose. Last round. Find downward facing dog. Find plank. Find your heart opener. And this time we're going to park ourselves in child's pose for several rounds of breath. See if you can completely soften here. Set yourself up to remain in this shape. Take an assessment again. Come back to that witnessing place. Just notice your mood. Notice your energy level. Notice the flow and quality of your breath. Find that pause. Let go of any action, let go of any tension or holding in the body, which is the second piece of this element for how the practice itself is the reward, and for how the obstacles that we come across are not hindrances, but actually the keys to our liberation. This second aspect is called vairagya. It means surrender, it means detachment, it means letting go of outcome. It means flowing with instead of fighting against. Really embody that letting go here in your held child's pose.
These two elements of abhyasa, well-placed, sustained effort in practice, and vairagya, letting go and surrendering, comes to us from Yoga Sutra 1:12. Take a few more breaths in this soft and resting shape. Then nice and slow, we're going to rise back up to a seated shape. If you're sitting on some kind of support behind you, you can take that and set it to the side, swinging your feet to one side. Let's come back to an upright seat. So choices for our final resting shape in today's practice could be a seated meditation. It could also be lying on the back with the legs up the wall. More like this. A third option for your resting pose also utilizes the wall, but just a tiny bit. So pressing the soles of the feet into the wall as if you were standing on that baseboard, and lowering the body down into a more traditional shavasana. So you feel grounded both through the soles of the feet and through the entire back body. In whatever resting pose you've chosen, start to really embody that vairagya of letting go. Soften your muscles. Release and relax any effort. Start to feel the benefits of stillness. See if you can remain in a place of receiving the benefits of our movement and our continuing to endure in our commitment to stillness, which is in and of itself that practice of yoga defined as stilling of the fluctuations of the mind, or remaining still despite the fluctuations of the mind. Just as we did at the beginning of class, witness your breath. Become fully aware and present with your state of being in this moment without shifting it or judging it or criticizing it. Simply being in your wholeness, recognizing any qualities that you may be embodying in this moment. Begin to feel that completeness, that wholeness represented by the Om flowing within you, the completeness of inhale and exhale. Chant the Om with me if you like, or just allow it to wash over you. If you are already resting in an upright seat, you can stay as you are. If you've chosen another resting option, begin to bring small, gentle movements into the body. And over the next minute or so, start to find your way back to that upright seat, perhaps in the center of your mat, or perhaps with the spine against the wall, as we did in the beginning of class. As you make your way into that seated shape, find that vairagya, that letting go, that surrendering in both the shoulders, the face, and the sitting bones. Find that well-placed effort in the core, the lengthening of the spine, and the opening of the heart, the reaching upward of the crown of the head. Balance, harmony, oneness, completeness, embodying that sense. And just feeling that blissfulness of wholeness and completeness that comes not in some distant future or in some later salvation or some distant heaven, but in this moment right now, connecting to the bliss that is. Drawing both our well-placed long-term effort of practice and our letting go and total surrender together as one. We bring the palms together to touch and pull that wholeness and unification into our heart center. As we return again and again to our practice, as we return again and again to stillness, we offer ourselves up not only toward our own happiness and to the will of love and wholeness, but also to the benefit of all living things as one being. And so we close our practice with this prayer of service. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all beings be happy, healthy, safe, and free. Namaste.